Diane Mourglia-Swerdlow with another edition of HealthyLivingForExpansions.com. Today I'm going to show you how to make baked pork ribs. Now here I have in front of me 2 racks of ribs, and I know a lot of times people are a little bit intimidated because they're concerned about not making them tender enough, but the secret is to cook them on a low temperature for a long period of time. So what I'm going to do is, you want to notice on how the ribs are. They're concave like this, and we're going to bake them with the bone side down. But before we do that, there is this white membrane on the back that I want to show you how to take off, which will help. And what I do is I just cut under with a knife, start loosening it up, and once you start to loosen up whatever you want to take off, then you grab it with a paper towel because it's very slippery. And I usually find that for me it's easier if I start in the middle. Now the same thing works if you want to take, say, skin off of a chicken, but you want to use the paper towel to try and get this membrane off. Once you get it started, it'll peel off pretty easily. But if you leave it on, which you can cook it with it on if you want, but if you leave it on, it does tend to make it a little bit tougher and not quite so nice and easy to eat. So this just kind of peels off like that. Take off what you can. You can't get it all off, and again, depends on how much time you have to spend to do it. I take off as much as I can, but if I don't get it all off, that's okay too. So just keep kind of working at it and pulling it up with a sharp knife until we get it off. And that allows whatever seasoning or spices that you want to put on your ribs to get further into the meat. Let's see how far we can get with this one. Okay. I'm just going to cut that off. Like I tell you before, I'm not a professional. I'm just somebody that likes to fool around with cooking and eat healthy as possible. The dogs are agreeing, apparently. Cut a little of this flap off. There we go. And then we're going to do the same thing to the next one. Okay, so I took the membrane off of this one. I went ahead and took this one off. I'm going to put some seasoning on. Now, there's 2 different ways that you can season ribs. One is with dry seasoning and one is with wet seasoning. Personally, I prefer the wet, but I'll tell you how to do the dry as we go along just so you have an idea. Well, this is a barbecue sauce that I happen to like, so I'm going to put this one. This is your wet seasoning, and you can make up your own as well. But I'm going to start with this one, and I don't do a whole lot. I just like to have a little bit of the seasoning. This is on the back side. And I'm just going to flip it over so the bones are down. You can also do it on a rack. I've done that as well. And one thing you want to notice that makes your meat tender, because these are tougher cuts of meat and that's why you have to bake them for a while, is it does have vinegar in it. And vinegar helps to tenderize your meat and break it down. I'm going to put just a little bit of water in the bottom to rinse this out. Because again, like I said, I don't want a whole bunch of it. I just want enough to kind of give it a little bit of flavor. And again, if you put too much on, then you know, that's really all that you're tasting. So let me get rid of this bottle because that's the end of that. Now in this one, I'm going to put some mustard on it. Mustard again has your vinegar in it. You can stir these up in a bowl. You can even add your mustard to your barbecue sauce. It's kind of, again, what's your imagination. That's how far you can go. If you want to have a more of a southwestern flair. You know, you can use cumin, you can use other types of spices. This is still wet, but if I wanted to do it dry, what I would, and I'm going to add, because what I like to do, I have my favorite organic black pepper, and I'm just going to sprinkle it on. Now, if you do it dry, you don't put anything wet on first. And I have a little bit of basil I'm going to put on. So sprinkle that on the back side. And then this one, I'm just roll it over. I'm going to do the same thing. So if I wanted to dry, I would just do my pepper. And I do my basil. And let me wipe my hand for a second here. Open this up because I want a little bit more basil on the top, since I'm going to be roasting it this way. And then I also have some organic and white onion granulated. Notice I use a lot of the same seasonings because that's, you know, I like things that are versatile. So this is how you would maybe make a dry rub. You can add in some red pepper flakes, red pepper powder, you know, kind of whatever type of seasonings that you like. And you just mix and match, and you find things that work well for you. This is a little bit of garlic powder, organic garlic powder. I'm going to put a little bit of this on. Okay, now this is a dry rub. And you just, you know, there you go. And you can put it in like that. I'm going to add the organic mustard on the top, because I like it with a little bit more moisture on it. And I'm gonna rub it in. You can also mix it up in a bowl, and again you can add some of the vinegar. Apple cider vinegar would be my vinegar of choice, and that helps to tenderize it. Now some people like to marinate their meat overnight. If I had the time, I probably would, but I don't really have the time, so usually I just put it together as I go. Wipe my hand again. I have my oven set on 270 or 250, I guess, and I'm going to bake these for about 3 hours. So this isn't a quick meal where you can put it in and then come back 30 minutes later and it's done. You can cook it on a higher heat. You can make the meat done, but it will be very tough. So the slower that you cook it, the more tender your meat is going to be, and you want to make it so when you cut it that it's tender around the bone and just kind of falls off. So 250 for about 3 hours. I'm going to put these in the oven, and then we'll check them. Now sometimes people wrap them in foil. I have done that, but I don't really see any major benefit. And if the meat starts to look a little dried out, then you might want to add a little bit more of your sauce as you go. Or if you're doing a dry rub, you might want to add a little bit of water in the pan, just a tablespoon or two, to create some moisture in your oven so your meat doesn't dry out. So we'll check back in a couple hours and see how they're doing. The ribs have been cooking approximately 2.5 to 3 hours, probably close to 3, so let's take a look. Alright, and see how nice they look. I'll put the, there we go, this is in between the bones. So the knife is going in easily. So that's telling me the meat is done. So let's go ahead and take it out. There we go. You can see how beautiful they look. And let's just go ahead and see how tender they are. It's hot, but we'll see the steam coming off. There we go. Right in between the ribs. And you can see how nice and tender that is. So we're just going to put a piece over here, and here's another piece. You can see how nice and easily that cuts, so you know that it's nice and tender. So there we go. That's the bone there. But there you go. So anyway, that's how you make pork ribs. So enjoy, and thank you for joining me for another edition of Cooking with Janet, HealthyLivingExpansions.com.